Hello everyone, I'm Alex Smith and this is Rupert Honeywood from Biz-Growth Bureau. Thank you so much for joining us in. Obviously if you've got to this point you must be enjoying the content. I know we've enjoyed filming this up to this point. This one is actually really about how do I grow my business and how do I pull all the pieces together, all the tools that you've learned for all 12 now isn't it, or 13, 12 or 13 episodes we're in. How do I put all of them pieces together? And what we're going to start by looking at is personal self-sabotage in the kind of the voices that we hear all in our own heads. What do they look like? Are they a blessing or are they a curse? That's going to be coming from me. Then Rupert's actually going to be talking about what does it look like from the other end of the spectrum of running a company and having to deal with, how many employees was it you used to run?
About 65, yeah.
So Rupert used to run a company of 65 employees. A lot of it was call centre based, wasn't it? A lot of it was, I think it was about 30,000 phone calls you were handling at one point, wasn't it?
Per month, yeah.
So what does it look like to have that kind of scale behind you and that kind of responsibility? So in terms of myself, we're going to be looking at now is the self-sabotaging the belief I know I've had in my life, but more actually I see it as a blessing and a curse. So self-sabotage, in terms of what does it look like, let's start with that, I suppose. In terms of my own personal views, is the limiting the beliefs that we put on ourselves of you can't do certain things, you can't achieve certain goals, because you don't feel like you're good enough, you don't feel like you're worthy of that. Now obviously you may not have that. If you're thinking about starting your own business or you have done already, you might not have them because you might know that your product or service is good enough to bring to market, but then growing, it might be a real struggle for you because you might not think that someone won't pay that amount of money for that service or product. They might not be willing to listen to you because of your age or whatever. So what it would be worth doing is thinking about this as a blessing. These are good that these thoughts are coming to you because these give you building blocks to then move forward. If you're sitting there thinking I'm too young to be able to go and start my own business, if you think you're too young to be able to go into boardrooms and try and educate people about something you're passionate about, something you're well skilled in, these are the kind of things you need to address, and these are things that we call blessings, because these are good stumbling blocks to come across to know where you need to improve. But at the same time, we should also be seeing this as a bit of a curse, because these are the things that could be holding us back. These thoughts, they could sit in our mind and linger and niggle away for too long, and we might not develop that company that we want to develop. We might not take those risks that we want to take simply because of the reason that we feel like we're not worthy of it. We feel like we're not worthy of being able to speak to people and ask them for their business. We're not worthy of asking them for their time to listen to what we've got to say and what we've got to share. Now, for yourself listening or watching, it may be worth taking the time just to take a sit back and think, when do I put self-sabotage and self-doubt belief into my daily life? Is it you're out of shape and you need to get to the gym? Is it I don't want to start that business, I don't want to ask that person out, I don't want to seek that opportunity? Do I not feel worthy to be able to go and ask for that opportunity? And sit back now, even if you need to pause this video right now and sit and think for a minute or two, what more could I be doing? Am I doing enough? How often am I limiting my belief because I don't believe in myself enough? And if you need to just take a minute out, please do. Take a minute just to sit and stop and listen and think about where you could be actually negatively influencing your life. And then what we'll do now is we'll hand it over to Rupert. What does that look like in a business sense, Rupert? So obviously I've just talked a little bit about how that could look in terms of a personal view. What does that look like from a business, and what is it like to run a company of 65?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, obviously, quite often the two cross over together. So, for example, we may be, for whatever reason, have massive elements of self-doubt, or something might have happened over the weekend, or someone might even said something to you which has put you on the back foot. So you start to doubt your ability. Ways it can certainly exhibit it from a business context is very basic level. For example, it may well be in terms of following through on the phone. People sometimes have this real fear of using the phone because people have this perception that perhaps they don't want to speak to you, or the other way around. And that could be really holding you back. And it could have a fundamental impact to your business because ultimately it could lead to things going horribly wrong. So actually learning what those elements of self-sabotage are at a personal level are very important.
I suppose that comes back to kind of what I was saying in terms of having confidence in yourself that you can achieve what you think you can achieve.
Yeah.
The phone's a great example of that. A lot of us are scared to actually ring up and say, hey, we had this conversation, I've got this service, I've got this product, would you be actually willing to have an exploratory conversation? It's a really crucial thing. A lot of people that we speak to are saying, look, my product's great, I know that. How do I sell that? How do I talk about that? And it really is as simple as pick up the phone and talk to people about it, or do this lead generation we're speaking about, and just try it.
Yeah, quite. The other thing is, which is very common, is that when you have a meeting with a potential client, people can be very almost frightened of actually asking for the sale, for asking that piece of business. And at the end of the day, if you've got a good product or service, you should be really proud of it. And also bear in mind that you're also doing someone a real service by providing that service, product or widget. So don't be frightened to ask for that piece of business at the end. And so, because you can end up by leaving money on the table or delay making a decision.
Like, we had an amazing conversation the other day with a group of people. They were underpricing themselves, and they knew they were, but simply because of the reason they thought that, they said, how can I charge what I think I can charge for it? And they were like, Rupert, like, what do I do about that? And the answer was simple. It's just try it. Put the price up, put the value up, whatever you think you need to do. If people stop paying for it, you know you've priced yourself out of the market, but suddenly people might actually have more value for it. They might actually see it's worth the money that you're charging for it.
Yeah.
So if you're at, say, £500-600 now and you think you could take it £2,000 for it, or the other way around, you're at £2,000 now and you think you can get £10,000 for it, push that price up, charge that figure, and the market will quickly tell you if you've priced yourself out of the market or not.
Yeah, that's right. And fortunately, with the business that I was involved with previously, when it grew from literally husband, wife, cat, son, dog, working from home, to a business employing 65 people, obviously it became a very, very different type of business to run. And as a consequence, you can have massive elements of self-doubt. You may have what you believe is going to be a really good meeting, and it turns out you don't get that piece of business. You can end up by taking it quite personally as well. And the big thing is you've got to be able to cut through that. And as the business grows, of course, you're then having to manage quite large teams of people. They themselves have elements of self-doubt. They have bad days. We all have good days, bad days. So we have sales teams. We have a team of 40, 45 telesales people, and about 20 people in support operations around all of that. And obviously, you've got to make sure that if you are very much a leader, which I know you feel very passionately about, that you're supporting those people in their bad days and good days as well, and giving them the tools, the toolbox, and helping to give them the confidence. And if you're a director of a company, of course, trying to manage all those people, you can also have massive elements of self-doubt because you may have a strong management team around you, but you've always got to put a very good face on when actually there might be all sorts of other things which are playing on your mind, which you've got to be able to deal with. So self-sabotage, can be a real challenge, but it can be a real blessing as well, because once you understand what those challenges actually are, and what you need to put in place to resolve those things, you end up by being much stronger as a person, and you also end up by having a much stronger business.
Yeah, of course. And while we're on the subject of that, is because obviously we need to cater for everybody watching and listening, is if you are running a team, if you are that person in charge, if you are that considered to be the leader, there's a big difference between the word manager, or if you're a manager of a team and you're a leader of a team. Obviously, I'd love to hear your view on this, but my perception of this is a manager who is someone who barks orders. They're someone who's demanding. They demand a result with no real concern over the implementation. On the actual employees themselves. Whereas a leader gets people behind them and follows that person, and they follow that leader for what they believe in. They follow the way the leader carries the team and actually supports the team to do their job. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would, except that what I would say in an ideal world is you should be in a position where managers are also good leaders, but that's quite a skill. It's quite a skill to get both right. So a manager may be, as you referred to,
someone who worries about the bottom line.
The numbers.
That bottom line might conflict with the well-being of the employees, whereas a leader, for example, is someone who takes the employees first and worries about the bottom line. Yeah. I suppose it's Richard Branson's famous saying of worry about the employees because they take care of your customers, right? That would be maybe a great way of capping that off.
Yeah, it is. But of course, Richard Branson is a leader, but is also a very senior manager, obviously a director of a multi-billion-pound empire, as it were. But I think you can be both. But it's quite rare to find those two skill sets in the same person.
And obviously, we can't tackle everything about business growth in one episode. This is a conversation that people devote entire days to. But what it would be worth talking now about is coming off cash flow, and talking about how to keep cash coming into the business and how to keep cash alive. Because a business could be profitable, but if they haven't got any cash in the business.
Yeah, so as a case in point, okay, let's take a real scenario which I can personally talk about. Previously I had a business which was phenomenally successful, became phenomenally successful, but one of the challenges, it became phenomenally successful because it was continuing to go through almost continual exponential growth. We managed to get a number of major partnerships on board, as well as thousands of people out there working with us, so it's a very exciting business. But the faster we were growing, the bigger the problems became, because in reality what we established that is if we were growing more than about 10 or 15% per annum, the demands for cash in terms of supporting that growth were too great, because what would happen is we'd have to buy stock in advance, we have to fill warehouses up, we'd then have to put in people on our telesales floor. They would generate sales on the back of it, as you'd expect, but the money might come in over a 6 or 12-month period, or it might be if you're on 30 days terms with your with your customers, that actually they don't pay on 30 days, they pay on 60 or 90 days. And the trouble is that challenge with locked up cash flow in a business can really hold your business back. So you can have a business which is very profitable on paper, but could actually run out of cash and go bust. But of course, a lot of this you may well know already. But there are very good ways of building and sustaining growth. And obviously, I think part of the parts we're planning to talk about today is about basically how to grow your business and put rocket fuel under it as well. So I don't know what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And also, something I was going to just mention as well is about plugging in fresh blood into a business to keep that growth. Now, by that I mean it on two angles. I mean it on the angle of fresh blood in terms of new employees or new consultants plugged in around you, not only to keep ideas fresh and new, but to help that growth continue, but also with clients. Although it's very important to go back to existing clients to either resell to them or upsell to them, but it's also equally important to get new blood into the business in terms of fresh sales. So it'd be quite nice to maybe to finish off this kind of this growth side of it in terms of how do I actually get new clients into it, how do I get new employees, or how do I get new consultants plugged in around me? I know that's four very different areas. How do I do that?
Right, God, that is a big question. Well, let's deal with the sales part to start with. We've obviously talked about LinkedIn and other social media platforms as well. The good thing is that what we've talked about today is eminently scalable. So, for example, obviously within, say, LinkedIn, you have to operate within safe parameters on LinkedIn. And
do you know what those parameters are?
I know LinkedIn, unfortunately, don't publish them, but we know from experience what works and what doesn't, and to stay with it safe. But of course, if you've got, say, a team of business development managers, so you've got 10 or 15 business development managers, there's nothing to stop you having, perhaps 10 of those business development managers having upgraded LinkedIn accounts, the Sales Navigator, and running multiple campaigns. The thing that, as a person, you need to decide within your own company or organisation is whether you want to do quite a bit of this yourself, or whether you want to outsource a lot of that to someone, say, such as ourselves. And obviously, at the end of the day, we're biased, so we try and keep this as neutral as possible. But it's basically a case to make a decision about whether you invest in time or money. If you invest money, then of course you get back time, so your business development managers can spend a lot more time focused on closing the business. If you do it the other way around, then of course you're possibly pulling very valuable resource away from what you're doing.
Yeah, and I remember we spoke about in a previous episode as well about the importance of plugging in consultants around us. So say you're an expert in your field and you're thinking about branching out, it's great to plug experts in around you that can actually facilitate that for you. So for example, the example we gave earlier on marketing, someone comes to you with a sales problem or needing a solution for it. Instead of you learning about that, or you trying to bodge that or trying to just pull that off just to please the client, plug someone in around you that's an expert in their field already, because not only have they got the experience behind them, but the expertise, but they can also deliver on that at scale, opposed to you having to learn about it and then stretching yourself too thin.
Yeah.
Obviously, this could be a conversation you could spread over. People devote entire workshops to this growth subject. To finish this off for the people watching and listening, what would be the final thing that we need to cover around growth? We've covered like the self-sabotage side of it. We've covered about new blood. We've covered about the marketing side of it. What else should we really cover today? Yeah,
I think really as far as that's concerned, just make sure that whatever you put in place, you can truly scale. Keep on testing and parallel testing, split testing, find out what works and what doesn't work, what doesn't work, move on and refine, take the learning from that, and then put in place campaigns around that, which are going to help you to really scale and move on to the next level.
Perfect. So to summarise that, it's all about scalability. It's all about putting processes and procedures in place that not going to only work very well initially, but they can be completely replicated time and time again to actually scale the business up.
That's right, but do it in such a way that it's sustainable from a cash flow point of view. If you do things the right way, you can end up with a massive business, generating you massive wealth, but also giving you a massive amount of satisfaction because you know you're doing a lot of good work with other people.
And to finish this off, I'm keen to learn about this as well, even more, but people watching and listening may also. Right now, what is the best way of getting scalable as quickly as possible to market? What is the quickest way of bringing my products or service to market? Is it through webinar, podcast, through events? What is the quickest way of bringing my product or service to market?
Right. It depends really how much money you've got to spend. Obviously, if you've got massive amount of monies to invest, let's say you've gone through a massive funding round, you might be able to invest in quite decent sums of money into a massive growth campaign. If in a lot of cases you're having to do it a little bit the other way around, then the way you deal with that would be quite different. But if you talk about sort of most businesses, a lot of what we talked about today about using social media, about plugging into events, webinars, making sure you're strong on the phone follow-up, incorporating scorecards, and then using meetings where appropriate. Obviously, meetings aren't terribly scalable, so clearly you only want to offer that where you think there's a reasonable chance of getting some form of return on investment, because your time or my time is the most valuable commodity. But there's lots of things you can put in place to give you that element of scale, but it does depend a lot on your core proposition in terms of what you do next.
I suppose the way I'd like to finish this off would be setting realistic targets, such as 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. And the reason for that is financially as well. For an example of that would be, say your target is £1 million a year. You want to be a £1 million a year turnover business. What you need to do is find a way of breaking that down, of say how many products do I need to sell, £500, £1,000, £2,000, how many times do I need to sell that? How often do I need to sell that to achieve, say, my goal? So a really good takeaway from this of how to grow my business. Obviously, cash is a massive part of growing businesses. Obviously, employees is a great metric for that as well. But it's how do I get more cash flow? How do I get more cash into my business? And this could be manageable, micro and macro targets, things like money coming in weekly, monthly, and things like that. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that, we actually do talk about that quite a bit on our webinar as well. Like I always say, we'll throw the link on the bottom of this. So if you ever want to join us on one of our weekly webinars, more than happy for you to join. Join the link on the bottom. That will take you through so you can book a time that suits you. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely perfect. So the exciting thing is what we've talked about as part of this was going to be a 12-part series, but I think we've ended up by throwing a couple of bonus sessions in there. In reality, we're going to be doing lots of really exciting things moving forwards. Obviously, we're going to have lots of other content to share with you. We've also got a book which is first of all available as a free download, or you can buy the hard copy version, which ties in with a 45-minute video as well, at very nominal cost, which we can provide you with details of. Plus, watch out over the coming weeks and months, because we're going to be filming lots of other content, which we'd love you to see and to share. And ask those questions, email us in questions, put questions in the comments box. We will try and get to those. And if we get enough asked to the same question, we'll probably actually even film a video answering those specific points.
Well, that's funny you say that, because just to finish off with, this is obviously series 1 with various episodes going through it. But are we allowed to mention what's coming soon in terms of the top 10 questions being asked?
Yeah, sure.
So what we've got coming next is actually we've had over 300 questions asked through our webinars that are all different questions in some shape or form. And what we're actually going to be doing is we're picking the top 10 of them, and we're going to be sitting and answering them specifically. So obviously you're consuming this content right now. What's going to be coming, hopefully by the time you've got to this point of watching it, is a top 10 questions for at least are going to be up and ready before hopefully you finish this. So thank you so much for watching. My name's Alex Smith. This is Rupert Honeywood from Biz-Growth Bureau. Like Rupert just said, your feedback is our oxygen. Thank you so much for watching this 12-part series. Oh, sorry, it's 13-part series so far. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.
Thank you.